Everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to another event from the Cultural Competency Committee from an agency that needs no introduction, NIAPRAS. As you know, every year we try to bring a platform for discussion, for wisdom, for knowledge, for sharing. And particularly this year, we are transitioning from a very complicated year. Man, talk about a complicated year. 2020 was a year of transformation, was a year of challenges, it was a year of conflict. But, you know, we rise up and we try to move forward. And during all the difficulties with the pandemic and all the difficulties with the challenges that we had in the area of social justice, we had a group that continued their fight because they themselves were looking for justice, not only for things that they have experienced, but for things that others had experienced and for things that people potentially might experience. This group was nonstop, was dynamic, was energetic, was constantly knocking on doors, talking to politicians, talking to legislators, talking to lawyers, talking to law enforcement. And finally, in March of 2021, the group known as HALT made history. And we have members of HALT today here with us to share a little bit of what they went through, how they did what they did to make history, who their allies were, who their challenge, what their
the HALT stands for criminal about what it took for
the voice of, for many years, of people in recovery, trauma survivors, people just looking for rights in the state of New York and the country. Harvey Rosenthal, how you doing, Harvey?
You're on mute.
I'm doing great, and I'm so glad to be here with all my friends. This is really such an important topic for all of us for so long.
Wonderful, thank you. So pretty much for people that are not aware, I'm not going to talk too much about HALT because that's why we have Jerome and Natasha and Harvey here to do that. But just two things that right away come into mind when we talk about the historic accomplishment that they were able to get. HALT prohibits solitary confinement in all forms beyond 15 consecutive days. But not only that, okay, it bans this medieval practice, okay, to be used against the most vulnerable people that we have in our community. People younger than 21, people older than 55, women that are pregnant, new mothers, and people with histories of behavioral health issues. Never again should this practice be executed for individuals in those communities. And this is just the beginning. There's a lot more than Jerome and Natasha are going to share with you that they continue to work with. But before we do that, we would like to ask Margarita and Teresa to talk a little bit about those individuals that unfortunately were not able to be here with us today. Marguerite, Teresa?
Okay, so in preparing and planning for this event, I want to give a real thank you to Teresa, who felt and expressed how important it is to understand and to recognize the people who were not able to get to this point today. That in the experience of their incarceration, that they had the ultimate difficulty. They were not able to survive. And so we want to just take a moment to recognize and honor them, and to be able to, let our whole community know that when people work as the HALT group, the CAKE group has done over many years to make change, that change saves lives. That's what's happening here. That we won't have another event a year from now where we're talking about people having been lost because of this. And so that's a major accomplishment. Teresa, you want to start?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm coming on video at this time. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So we
Good
thank God.
afternoon, Teresa.
We thank God for this meeting. My name is Teresa Hall. I can't see myself. See me? Can you see me?
Yes.
We can see you.
My name is Teresa Hall, and I am with the NIAPRS Cultural Competence Committee. I also serve with NIAPRS on the board of directors, and I am also an evangelist in the community of Long Island. So it's an honor to be here. And like Marguerite said, at a time such as this, the most important thing, one of the important things I should say, that came to my mind is what about those that didn't make it here? And I think they will be a significant representation of what.
Teresa, we can't hear you.
Got to unmute.
You're on mute, Teresa.
Lost, but what they suffered while in the box, a removal from the human race as we know it. People need people, their loved ones not being able to reach in to emotionally support them through that particular part of their journey. And then, we have to think about the ones that do physically come out, but they died mentally or emotionally while they were in there. Khalif Browner, praise God, bless his heart, and we thank God for his journey, is a perfect manifestation of the horror of the fact that when you come out of the box, you left your life, your actual life that you're living in the box. So I thank you for this opportunity. I'm grateful for this meeting, and I can't wait to hear more.
Okay,
Thank
so
you,
can
Teresa.
we,
Go ahead.
I apologize. I was going to say, are we going to take this
do you
time
want to
to
go
silence?
ahead with the moment of silence?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
So God, we take this time to offer up our own contribution, a moment of silence to recognize, appreciate, and thank you for not only their lives, but their journey, God, what is to be taught out of it, God. So we thank you for that. And we cry for the wound, the grief that we're stricken with, but at the same time, we praise your name and we believe that all things are going to be to the good and the glory of God. So with that in mind, we offer up our contribution, our sacrifice, a moment of silence in remembrance of our friend.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Teresa.
We thank you for your participation. Lewis, it's back in your hand.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Marguerite. Thank you so much. Thank you. So let's take a breather and move forward. Okay. Dr. Wilcox, before we begin, any thoughts?
Well, I was thinking today about policy, how difficult it is. And we all know, and particularly, Harvey Niaspris, you all, are there every year for your state legislation day, advocating policy and what's going on around the country. Policy is so difficult to create. And this has been a policy that has come, policy comes from law. It comes from activism. It comes from advocacy, community education, engagement, consistently and sustainable, not a one-shot deal. And Jerome and Natasha is gonna, really bring the journey. But we have a lot of policies that have to be put in place in this country in order for us to become what? Healthy and well and sustainable and inclusive of all people and humane of the dignity and respect that all people deserve. People first policy. When we get people first policy, then the United States will become a healthy country. But we don't have that. We have a lot of work to do, and we have to get grassroots voices involved in shaping public policy every single day, bring it to law, and then the hard work is implementation. So I'm going to end my remarks there, but I want to lay the foundation that we talk about those processes. The processes of constructing and framing policy, or the advocacy that goes with that, and then the implementation after the policy has come to law.
Wonderful. I'm very powerful. As I move the platform for Jerome and Natasha to begin their presentation with us today, I would like to ask everyone in the chat room to please introduce yourselves. How about name, what you do, and what region of the country you're in. If you're in Brooklyn, put that down. If you're in Rochester, put that down. If you're in Jersey City, put that down. If you're in Colorado, put that down. All right, so we would love to have your name, what you do, and what part of the country you're coming from, okay? And I think it's time to have our champions take over this platform. Natasha, Jerome, the platform is yours.
You would say the platform is mine as soon as I put a
He's
piece
right when it's time.
so as soon as I put a piece of candy in my mouth. Trying to get ready, but first of all, thank you, and thank you for all of you who joined us today. First of all, I want to give a humongous thanks to Evangelist Hall for centering us in this webinar with the people that we lost, because while we're talking policy, while we're talking advocacy, we're talking about people and lives that we're trying to save, whether they save them physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and that's what this is about. And again, to highlight Dr. Wilcox's point, when we put people first and we treat people humanely, thus the humane alternatives, HALT, then we have a better society for everybody. I don't believe that people are incorrigible. I was called that at one time, and I think that I've come a long way. I ain't finished yet. He ain't finished with me yet, thank God, but I know I've come a long way, and that's not self-aggrandizing. That is a fact. And I know that people change, and that we have the ability to heal and help each other. And that's what HALT is about. And that's what they're fighting so forcefully against. And then you got to ask yourself, why is that? Why would you fight against the very thing that we're telling you from the people who are directly impacted? Nobody knows better the pain, the torture, the trauma, or the therapy and treatment that we need other than those who are most directly impacted. You want us to listen to the experts when it's about COVID and the flu and everything else, but when we're the experts, you don't want to listen to us. And that's what this bill is really about. They finally listened to the people and they listen to the experts regardless of what our crime of conviction is or what our history has been. Because whether you never been arrested or not, this bill will save lives of people who come in contact with the criminal justice system, and it will no longer be the whipping post and the torturous environment that it was created to be that gives us the type of recidivism rate that our jails and prisons already have that are too high, significantly too high. I want to thank the support that NIASPRS is always given and that stands up as a beacon of hope for thousands and thousands of people who suffer on a daily basis with some form of mental illness, mental distress, or just living life. Because we all have had some form of issue at some point or another, whether you want to acknowledge that or not. And to give a voice, to give power, to give credibility, and to give love to people, no matter what their situation is, that's what you stand for, and that's what we really appreciate. And I want to give special thanks to my friend Harvey, who really exemplifies what all of this is about. Yeah, and he rocking the t-shirt too. Yes, right. So I really just want to open up with a thank you, and then let Natasha, say something, because I really want to have an engaging conversation with you today about policy and why they make it so hard. They don't even teach civics in school anymore. You know why? They don't want our kids to be empowered civically. They don't want them to know the power to vote. And if we haven't seen nothing in the last year, we have seen the power of the vote. Whether it is Black and brown people bringing home the presidency, whether it's Black and brown people bringing home the majority in the Senate, whether it's Black and brown people like Stacey Abrams bringing people out that never voted before, who finally been disenfranchised so long that now they recognize their power, and now they're trying to take that. And so as much as we wanted to make policy, they're trying to make it harder now for us to even vote policy in. So we want to be cognizant of that, because this is not a prisoner issue. This is a human rights issue. This is a people issue. And let's keep it people-centered like Dr. Wood. It will take us a doctor who do nothing but what? Treat people and took that oath, that Hippocratic oath, to always do the best for people, to say that that's what we should be doing, keeping people first. And that's what HALT is about. Natasha?
Jerome, give me 2 minutes, please. Keep talking. I have to answer the door.
You can't give it 2 minutes. No problem. So one of the things we did want to touch on is our journey. And one of the things about our journey, it was arduous and it has been long. I see my comrade over here, my fellow statewide organizer. If you are seeing this, he's on the screen somewhere, just below that title up there, Victor Pate.
I'm back.
Yeah. Oh, so you want me to stop now?
Yeah, all right. So hello, everyone. I don't know, my camera went off, but thank you. Yeah, leave it off. Oh no, you can leave it off. My name is Natasha White, and I am a community organizer for HALT Solitary. I'm a directly impacted woman on a survivor of solitary confinement, directly and indirectly. As far as the HALT fight is concerned, this fight was long. I was not here for all of it. However, it applies directly to me. You know, the misconception that people have is that only people that are actually put in solitary are affected by solitary, and that is not true. As humanity is concerned, love, religion, all things involved. When one person is tortured, we are all tortured. These people that you are locking behind these doors have family. These people have the rights, same rights, regardless of what they have done, that you have. So why do people think it is okay to treat them less than you would treat an animal? My husband was in solitary confinement for a very long time, and it affected how he deals emotionally, physically, his anger issues, all of the above, to the point where I almost lost my life in my own home. because he came home not knowing how to deal with anybody else, especially his wife. You know, this has affected my life tremendously. I refuse to allow another woman, another mother, another sister, another daughter to have to worry about whether or not her male or female loved one will come home an empty shell or won't make it home. You know, this fight ain't over. They are trying to pull rollbacks anywhere they can. Lawsuits, like, how dare you sue somebody for fighting what's right for what's right? You know, the government is tricky. It's tricky, and the insanity of it is the system ain't broken. This is how it was created. It was created to destroy and dismantle anything that it is not of them. Now, we've already infiltrated the White House. We got a good one in with President Obama, and now we have a female Black and brown vice president. However, they don't make the rules. So we have to start from the bottom like we did. We have to continue to knock on legislators' doors. We have to continue to get the experts, me, Jerome, Victor, those of us that are formerly incarcerated and know exactly what the system is about. We have to continue to let them lead the front line, because anything that doesn't involve us is not for us. I appreciate NIAPRIS. I appreciate all my coworkers on the call. I appreciate all of you guys for attending. I appreciate everybody at Team HALT. And I just appreciate God for giving me the opportunity, the knowledge, and the fight, because this is a fight. And I ain't never lose many of those. And I won't lose this one either. I want to pass it on to Victor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Natasha. That's so strong.
You know, Victor always having technical problems. He doesn't
Oh, okay.
He's there. He's
Okay. Hey, hello, everybody. Good afternoon and stuff like that there. Good to see you again, Harvey, and looking forward to ride me some more horses. So thank you, everybody, for attending, and always my colleagues. I'm always, honored to be on the platform with them. And, I'm not going to be long. I'm just going to say a few things actually in the middle of something right now. But as always, my colleagues kind of sort of like began and mentioned it, and Jerome really said a mouthful with regards to the education and the raising of the consciousness, and for years, people that have been disenfranchised have mostly been disenfranchised by not being educated, by not being informed, by not knowing the underlying conditions upon which our system is built. And we can always refer everything back to its beginning in slavery. And everything about our system is related back to slavery. Control, a lack of power, a lack of knowledge, and lack of ability to do and improve conditions and circumstances under which we are held under or under which we operate. And I said that because when we look at our prisons and jails, which is modern day slavery, and when you think back, knowing the history of slavery and how slavery was continuously perpetrated upon our people by continuously keeping them enslaved, unempowered, disenfranchised, and not educating. So I look at when you go into the system, there is what they call the receiving process. To me, it's just a breaking and orientation process under another name. If you look at how the process is carried out, when you go into the prison system, they demean, they degrade, and they do everything they can to break a person's spirit, take away your name, take away anything that resembles any type of humanity whatsoever, and expect you to now conform, comply, and be okay with being enslaved, to be okay with being oppressed, to be okay with being tortured, abused, and mistreated, which is the same thing they did during slavery. So of course now in so-called modern time, we have slavery in another form. And slavery in another form is even worse now than it was then, because society is told that people go or should go to prison to be punished. Prisons don't serve anything except for punishment. And when you send people to prisons and jails for punishment, it does nothing to correct, nothing to help, and nothing to prepare a person to re-enter society. So that what you have is people that going into our prisons and jails, coming out worse than they was before they went in some instances. When you look at the treatment and the conditions under which people are held in our prisons and jails, it makes people worse than they were before they went in. When you do nothing to address a person's behaviors, when you do nothing to help a person become a better person, or to create the platform for that person to become a better person, all you're doing is creating a monster. So when you talk about conditions, when you talk about treatment, when you talk about torture and abuses, solitary confinement is one of the worst things could ever happen to any human being. And solitary confinement doesn't anything to address a person's behavior, to address a person's issues, to even help a person to become a better person than they were. So in our prisons and jails, it's just another form of slavery. It's nothing but torture. And our system needs to be torn down and rebuilt. So we can say for all of you who have been supporters of us, with us, have been on this long journey with us, we thank you, and we surely hope that you will continue, because guess what? The fight now begins. Although we were successful in getting the HALT bill passed, guess what? We ain't done. And now the work really starts. And if you all have been informed, you already know NYSCOBA, they're starting their little games, they're starting their fun, they're trying to distract, they're trying to dilute, and they're trying to tear down everything that we fought for. But we say, we the people, by the people, and for the people. Together we fight, together we win. Thank you. And I turn it back over to Jerome.
Wow, thank you, Victor. I hate to hear your long version, since that was the short one, but no, but my brother.
Yeah, because I gotta get off. I gotta go take it. But I want to make sure I dropped in for a minute and support you all. And thank you, Natasha and Jerome. And it's good to see Harvey and the rest of the NIAPRIS team. And we'll see each other in the fight. Have a good day.
Thank you, brother.
Have a good day.
I was just teasing because you definitely spoke about what we segue into. We did get a win with HALT, but there's also a recent win now. We just got, somebody asked, what is NYSCOBA? NYSCOBA is the New York State Corrections Officers and Police Benevolent Association. So that is the union that supports state correction officers and police officers, and their union filed a lawsuit. And I'm going to get into that because I know you guys have some questions about that. But I want to piggyback what's already been said and talk about some things we had scheduled to talk about as far as the journey and creating policy and where the power lies. Because in this fight, we're going to have to continue to create more power. We're going to have to take it to another level. And in order to do that, we need to know what some of those levels are. And one of the things we wanted to share with you is that in spite of the pushback that we knew we were going to get, the successful passage of this is monumental, because now that it's law, in order to undo a law, it takes a little bit more than it is to get the law passed in the first place. because there are a lot of procedural bars and all of this. So they have a fight on their hands and they don't have standing. But what they do have is a false narrative that they create to continue to perpetuate that got us in this problem in the first place. They have gone on record to say that there is no solitary confinement, that is a figment of our imagination, that we are trying to get you who've never been involved in that to believe in what you call it, Shawshank Redemption, Escape from Alcatraz, Hollywood version of solitary. And that is nothing could be further from. I am not trying to win an Oscar by lying about what happened to me in solitary. I am actually trying to save Oscar's life from being tortured and traumatized in solitary confinement. Not trying to win anything. What happened to me, what happened to Natasha, what happened to Victor is real. And we're not, this is not hyperbole. We're not making this up. This is not embellishing the truth. These are facts. And every time they want to debunk or rebuff a fact, then they want to continue to tell you a lie. And that's what we have to do. We've got a culture now where lies are believed before the truth, where any narrative that gets out first is the truth. And that is part of the problem. And what organizations like NIASPRAs and HALT and all them do, we demand that the facts get out there, that the truth be told. And somebody put it in there, like Victor just did, we speak truth to power, fearlessly, ferociously, and now successfully. And what he said did is really important is we can't stop. And the problem is with resting on your laurels that they never rest. Evil is always on its job. I need to say that again, maybe, because I can't see your faces out there in webinar land, but I want you to understand that evil don't take time off. So good got to be on job all the time too. And you have to understand your power. What I learned is that I do have some power, that my voice is powerful, and that I can bring people out to share in that power with me, whether it's to vote with me or to stand with me or to push elected. Listen, we have to get away from revering people because they wear collars and have titles. An elected official works for us, you and I. We pay their salary, we put them in office. We are not to reverence them. We are to demand that they do what they're supposed to be doing for us in our community. And when we start seeing them as stars or up here in pedestals and that's when we lose our power. When we recognize and make them re-recognize, revisit the fact that you work for me, then we get somewhere. And groups like NIASPRAs have always been on the front lines of saying, we demand change because you don't know what we're going through, but let us tell you. And this is how you can ameliorate our concern. And not to discredit anybody else, but to take care of us. And that's what we're doing with HALT. And we can't stop with HALT. We got parole injustice going on. We got climate injustice going on. Listen, I live in Buffalo and it can snow any minute now, right? But we've had more good weather here since I've been living here in a dozen years than I've ever heard of. And that's part of climate change. I want a planet for my grandchildren. This ain't just for me. This ain't just about us. Just like diapers ain't just about Harvey, it's about all of us. Like cake ain't just about me and Natasha, it's about all of us. That's the people-centeredness that we want to bring today. That all of you on here have clients, you have jobs, you have responsibilities to nurture your clients, but you also have a responsibility to speak truth to power and to be protective. You may have not taken the quote-unquote Hippocratic oath that Dr. Wilcox may have taken, or somebody that's a practitioner on that level, but you have an oath as a human being to treat everybody with dignity and respect. And that's all we asking for. While we're fighting for Black lives to matter, we got to remember that incarcerated lives matter too. And that's what HALT is about. And I just want you to know that the power still resides in the people. When we first went with this bill and brought it to them, they laughed us out of the Capitol, said it would never happen. You know what they called us? Crazy. And now they call it a law.
Ashe.
So resilience, and that's the last thing I'm gonna say. You know, resilience is what we needed in this campaign. And I'm gonna tell you, there were days when I wanted to waver and wander off into something else because it was frustrating. The no's, the inhumanity of it, the idiocy of some of their responses of why they couldn't sign on and why and got really daunting. But because we had so many people holding each other up, that on my down day, it was Natasha's up day. You know what I'm saying? And she brought me up. And that's what we need to do together. And that's what we want to tell you. Bring your clients up, bring your coworkers up. Remember that we fighting together. If we fighting against each other is what they want us to do. That is the game. Let's fight together. Let's continue to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jerome. Luis, I just wanted to make a couple comments related to what Natasha and Jerome has brought to us as we begin to our dialogue. I want to highlight some of the key points in your disclosure, of this experience and what time it is. Natasha talked about the impact that solitary confinement and this punitive system has not only on the individual that's actually confined, but how it impacts their family life during that time and then after that time, and then the impact of that type of torture has on our community, the state, and the nation. It brings to mind, a matter of fact, Jerome, I want to tell you, I'm a counselor educator. I'm not a MD physician, but I just want to say that it brings to mind some of my studies in my undergraduate program. I went to Fisk University, so I'm going to shout out to FU. But I want to say that I learned about a psychiatrist by the name of Frantz Fanon. And Dr. Fanon was he's from Martinique, from the African diaspora, French diaspora. And he talked about in The Wretched of the Earth, Black Face, White Mask, that there's a symbiotic relationship between the oppressor and the oppressee. In other words, what you brought home, Jerome, was the fact that we're all in this together, whether we realize it or not. An example would be if you're standing with your foot on my neck, I still got to stand there. And if I'm putting you in solitary confinement, I'm in confinement as well. So oppression, impacts everyone that's involved. So this is not fragmentation time. And the movement that we're seeing with Black Lives Matters leadership, we're seeing a multicultural movement where this generation of young people are saying, we are not going to pass on racism and other forms of oppression to our children. We want them to have a sustainable, well life, an enjoyable life. And Jerome, you brought in the environment. It's all interrelated. Justice is not fragmented. It's confluent, it's integrative. So I just wanted to bring those points home, and that public servants, people who get public dollars for their salaries, they're servants. They're serving us as a public, not themselves. So those are things that have to be flipped, but you all have done that with this particular HALT initiative, which lays the foundation of all the other bricks that have to be dismantled in this systemic oppression.
Hi, thank you, Miss Wilcox, for that. Thank you, Doctor. I want to say that, I think what really pushed the campaign across the finish line is the fact that legislation, not only began to do pop-ups on the prison population and see the conditions in which people were in, they finally realized that by the grace of God, there go they. You know, we all want the best for our future. We all want the best for our children. We all want the best for our loved ones. So the moment you realize that one day it could be yours, your loved one that's sitting in that cell for whatever reason, because with the case with the exonerated five, how many people whose cases have been overturned, who were falsely convicted, people are now beginning to see that prison does not equal bad. Because a person is in prison does not mean they don't have redemption ahead of them. It does not mean that they are a bad person. Sometimes it doesn't even mean they did a bad thing. So when people realize that the only difference between you and me is I paid for mine already, it is they see that it is imperative that something is set forth to treat people humanely. Secondly, we all rub shoulders with each other. This civilization, this world is very, very small. The girl that is doing my hair right now seen Jerome on the screen and said, "Is he on the news before?" I'm like, to me, I know we on the news all the time, but she's never seen him before. She's seen the news though. She now knows who Jerome Wright is. She now also knows that we fought for the safety of her children, her Black sons and daughters. You understand what I'm saying? So legislators have realized that we weren't taking it no more. 8 is enough. 8 is enough. Enough is enough. 8 years in the rough. It's over. Now, as Victor said, and as we have made y'all aware, of course, rollbacks happen. We're not letting up off of them. Now, our foot is on your neck now. How does it feel? How does it feel? We learned how to get what we wanted. And that's the first step. Once the door is open, they say don't leave the barn door open because once the horses get out, they're gone. And the greatest thing about this is we can do this everywhere. New York is a precedent state. We the leader of everything. We got it done here. We on to the next. And I just can't wait. I'm just waiting for them to say, pack up, let's go. We on our way over here. And I'm with it, because I'm a human being that believes and loves every other human being. I believe in doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Well said, well said. I wanted to see, Dr. Wilcox, if Harvey had any thoughts, because I know Harvey has been, as Jerome stated earlier, he's been involved in this on a personal level, on a professional level, on a level. And I'm wondering if there's any thoughts that he would like to add to this powerful conversation.
Well, thank you, Louis, and thank you again, everybody, for your powerful words. Well, the thing I first say is that right this minute, somebody is suffering in a cell they don't belong in, and they only get out 30 minutes a day. And it's an egregious, torturous kind of situation. I live with that every day, like everybody here, and particularly my friends who've been there. So we are so with you on this campaign, and we will do whatever is needed, Jerome. If this lawsuit becomes an issue, we have to raise the press or create some sort of a groundswell. We will do whatever you need. I will just say that my focus, besides trying to help change the culture of the prison from torture to rehabilitation, is helping to keep people out of prisons and help them when they leave not come back. So a lot of the work is now around on the front end, around abuse and racism, around all the police contact, all the unnecessary arrests, the murders, all of these egregious sort of policies that have to change. So we're focusing a lot on alternatives, of sending someone else other than the police when people are in trouble, peers, for example, an EMT. And on the other side, we're focused on reentry and particularly trying to restore Medicaid 30 days before leaving, so people will leave with their health care and a worker or so waiting for them. So want to keep people out, make sure that rehabilitation happens if they're in, and help them leave and never come back. So that's NIAPR's commitment. We've been able to support this wonderful group, you know, towards changing the prison. And now we're focusing on the other two things as well.
Thank you so much. Before I pass it back to Dr. Wilcox, because she has a couple of thoughts and questions for the panelists, I just want to remind everybody that we will be back on May 25th. And the main topic of that day will be exactly what Harvey has just introduced, which is reentry and how to support and provide assistance to individuals that are coming back into the community, something that the system, like many systems, have not done historically. And people a lot of times have a very difficult time reconnecting to family, to friends, to community, to work, to life. They have a hard time reconnecting to life after spending years inside. So that will be the main topic, May 25th at 1 p.m., May 25th at 1 p.m. Dr. Wilcox.
Jerome, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just listen. I know y'all might be tired of hearing from me after a while, but I would definitely like to be involved in that discussion. To me, like Harvey talked about, reentry is probably the nexus for recidivism more so than anything else. There is no reentry. It is only a word that has creeped up in the vernacular of criminal justice in the last decade or so. There was never a concerted or conscientious effort to provide for aftercare because they realized that that was a way to keep people coming back. And so I know that's going to be a serious fight, and housing is the primary thing that's needed. And they fight. Listen, we don't have housing for people who've never committed a crime or been accused of committing a crime. And so housing for people who've been accused or convicted is even worse. And the shelter system is prison 2.0. And we cannot be doing that to people when we have all the resources and all the land available to provide sustainable, affordable housing. You can't get somebody back on their feet without putting a roof over their head. That just does not work. And I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut Dr. Wilcox up, but
No, this is really, it's about your lived experience, Jerome and Natasha. We're learning from your journey and your lived experience. But one of the things out here in Denver, they just passed a law that the landlords have to have a license to hold them accountable for the kind of best practices they need to have toward people who are renting. I just wanted to let you know that's, the housing discussion is really heightened out here. But I wanted to ask you and Natasha, would you share a little bit about your journey after you were released and what brought you into this optimal leadership that you're displaying, this leader kind of advocacy, activism that you are involved in? If you would like to share that story.
Okay, so I'll take the lead on this one if you don't mind. So I was in prison. I did 3 different state numbers with 2 violations per state number. I've been arrested approximately 26 times. Due to mostly my drug addiction and the lack of support once released. So every time I was released from prison, I was released to a shelter if I was released from upstate. And the times that I've been released from Rikers Island, they give you a bus ticket. I mean, they give you a Metro card and they let you go. So back to the streets I went. Finally, in 2016, I was released for the last time with no parole. I had maxed out on doing a violation, and I was released to Providence House. I was one of the first people they accepted from a parole violation. See, so a lot of these reentry programs, first of all, I'm a woman. So if there's a bed of 70, only 12 of them belong to us. From Providence House, I went to Fortune Society. There, I started an internship and was doing my externship at Exodus, where I met Harvey Murphy. who was a community organizer at Just Leadership. We had a mutual friend, and they invited me. Well, they didn't even invite me. They tricked me to go in to talk to Mayor de Blasio. You know, they're like, oh, Tasha's gonna say whatever she wanted to say. Let's bring her with us. So they dragged me up 125th Street. And when we get to the corner, I see this 7-foot-tall man standing there talking. And they told me, ask him about his plan for Rikers Island. So that's what I did. And I was so intense to him. He actually bent down and was holding my hand trying to soothe me. Because once I started talking, I wasn't going to stop. So that's how it started. What I can say is my advocacy work has actually saved my life. It is how I don't know no other way to say this, and excuse me if it's offensive, but this is how I get my shit off. You know, my frustrations, my anger issues. You know, a long time ago, I was known to go from 1 to prison real quick. So it's not even from 1 to 100. It's 1 straight to prison. So in the interim, I have used that energy to advocate for not only the people that can't speak, but for myself, because my prison experience was very lonely. I didn't get visits. My husband was in prison at the same time. I didn't get nothing. I never got a package. I never got a visit. And because of my drug addiction, me and my family were very estranged. So my family became the people I was incarcerated with. A lot of them being old timers. A lot of mistreatment. You know, I've had friends that were hung by guards, that were murdered by guards in their cell. You know, so that's how my advocacy started. HALT. Okay, so then I had the situation where I finally, you know, started making a couple of dollars, able to take care of myself through working for Just Leadership. I got my first apartment, and I moved in December. By June, I was in a domestic violence shelter all the way in Albany. I had to leave everything behind because of the incident that transpired in my house with my husband. And that day, June 6th was the day the incident occurred. About a week later, Just Leadership went to Albany, and we were partnered with HALT. And they asked me to talk. They like, Tasha, you at that time, I didn't realize that my situation and HALT were so close in proximity. But I realized that my husband, he does because of what he's endured where he was. And that day, the light switch went on. Bing. So that's the first time I spoke with HALT. That day, I decided not to come back to New York. When the whole Just Leadership got on the bus and came back, I rented a hotel room. Of course, they paid for it. And the next day, I went to the domestic violence shelter. Unfortunately, that was not in God's plan, because I stayed in Albany maybe 2 months, and then I moved to Pennsylvania. In the interim, finally, you know, I started working construction, and then what's this called? COVID took over. So I lost my job, of course. And I took that time to do not 1, 2, but 3 different community organizing classes. And just to stay connected, you know? So, oh no. So when the HALT position came up, I said, this is mine. This one is for me. And it so happened that I had just did a voters registration course with CCF, and Victor was on it with me, where we got people that had prior convictions and weren't registered to vote. We taught them the importance of the history of voting, and we got them registered. I even took my people to go vote. And then, so when I got the interview and Victor was on the panel, I said, yeah, this is mine. This is mine, because nothing without me is for me. And I try not to, whenever I speak, I never speak on when I was in solitary, because I believe there's enough of us doing that. I speak for the women on the loved one of the person who has suffered in solitary. But see, people that have that go to prison and have never been the one on the outside waiting for somebody to come home, sometimes think they're the only ones locked up. See, but if my husband is locked up, so am I. If I have to worry about his Black life every day in the hands of people that are supposed to be correcting, then, that's a whole different nightmare. When I have to worry about if somebody's poisoning his food or if they're going to run in his cell while he's sleeping and beat him to death, that's trauma. That's a trauma in itself. And prison is already traumatic. So I bring my experience from a different standpoint, which doesn't take away from than anybody else's. So I don't have to speak about what solitary did to me personally. We all know what it did. But it made me a fighter. And like I said, we gonna keep it going. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this powerful.
Yeah, Natasha. I don't know if my story could be as
Please, Jerome.
glamorous as that. In 1990, I was in Southport, and it was a regular corrections facility. Maximum security, and an attorney approached me about testifying in a racial discrimination suit against Elmira Corrections Facility about the racial discrimination in their solitary practices, sending Black and brown people to solitary for everything. White guys got caught with the same weapon in the same circumstances, didn't get a new charge, didn't go to solitary. And so there weren't many people who would speak up. Me with my bold behind decided I was going to speak up, and was sent to Wendy Correction Facility to testify in a federal lawsuit. And while we were testifying, we got threatened by the officers. And long story short, we were assaulted by those officers for testifying against their colleagues about saying the N-word and all the stuff they were doing. And then we're given a 72-month SHU sentence for protecting myself from the assault by these staff. And so I was sentenced to 6 years in solitary confinement for something I didn't do. And it was at that point that I swore, while I was in that cell, bleeding from the wounds and all, thinking I was about to die. I think I wasn't, but I thought it felt like I was. And I made a pledge then that I was going to fight to now I didn't say fight to end it, but do something about it. And, fast forward, I was still incarcerated. Fast forward, I get out in 2009, and the campaign hasn't started yet. They're talking about solitary and the issues, but it wasn't until 2014 that the bill was formally introduced. And I took some kids that I was teaching in the school in Rochester, in a charter school for young Black men. And speaking about Harvey, I was trying to convince these young Black men that they didn't want to go to prison, that being in prison wasn't a good move, that I had already done enough time for all of them. And I got the opportunity to take them to an advocacy day for HALT to show them about solitary and explain to them why they didn't want to go to prison. And I took about 30 young men in these red blazers we had for our school, and it was a trip that was empowering to them because they got to sit with these legislators who they held in these high esteem and tell them what they felt and argue with them actually about things, respectfully and diplomatically, but articulately. And in a long story short, it was one of the most empowering days of my life to pass this on to them, to watch them. And then when we came back to school, for them to have an assembly and talk about it and how much they felt empowered. And I decided I wanted to do that. And the campaign put out a job call for upstate organizer. And I applied with about 20 other people. And like Natasha, I said that was mine because I felt it was something that I was, prepared for, that I had been groomed for, that I did those 30 years and 7 years in solitary for. I felt that God had took me on that journey to be who I am in this movement. and they gave me the job. And as they say, the rest was history, man. I immersed myself into this fight. I harkened back to that 1990 time, and I decided that we were going to make this a victory for all the people who suffered before, and that nobody would suffer again. And they allowed me to be one of the leaders of the campaign. They allowed my voice to be equal to anybody else's. They allowed me to be a part of all of the decision making and strategizing and communication and narrative. And they allowed me to take my miserable time in prison and solitary and to make that a positive mission that I now share with all of you. And it is really, truly a blessing to be able to go from there to here and to know that, how they made me feel as black human all that time, that my humanity was able to show and grow out of that. And I know how many people I left behind who didn't have that experience. And I'm just thankful for God that he allowed me to make it and that we paved the way that others won't have to go through there.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jerome, so much.
So there's a question in the chat box, Jerome, and I want to reiterate what Jerome said. This is the most democratic campaign I've ever seen. No decisions are made without the group's okay. Emails are sent around, weekly calls, everybody's on it. Jerome is a leader, but everyone gets to speak up. And so it says here on the right, Jerome, how did the whole solitary team interact with actually writing the bill? How do they know who to work with and what the process was like with legislators who either were the prime sponsor or co-sponsors?
That's a great question, because all of this was a civic lesson for me as well. I think many of the people who came to it as just like you, human beings saying this is wrong and we want to figure out how to make it right. And one of those things was we knew that making policy just administrative wasn't going to be enough, because then that means whoever's in the administrative chair controls what the policy is, that we needed a law that everybody had to follow for perpetuity as long as there wasn't no repealing of it. So we had lawyers, we had social work. I mean, I can tell you, I don't think that there's anybody, I don't know a fireman that was in this campaign, but I bet there was a fire person in this campaign someplace, but everybody else from every strata was involved. So it was a thing of really having the community speak. And what happened is, for myself and Natasha and Victor and so many of us who were directly impacted, the community embraced us as for our expertise. They embraced us for our commitment to the fight, but more importantly, they embraced us as equal human beings with them. And I think that made all the difference in the world to the legislators. That made all the difference in the world to all the people who we recruited and networked with, that there was no conjugation between our group. There was us against what was wrong. And that really was the difference. And let me say something else. We came across now, and we got to protect this. We have some of the best legislative people in the state legislature now than we have ever had. And that's not including this governor, who I have my mixed feelings about. But those senators and assembly people, those Democratic majority people who are in there now, are not only real, they are compassionate, and they will fight for us for real. Not get in there and do the shuffle and dance, not stand up there and be kowtowed and browbeaten, not stand there and not recognize, because see, like Harvey said earlier, or I remember maybe it was Dr. Many of them have grown up and their own family members have been maligned and oppressed by this system. They've had brothers and sisters and fathers and uncles and aunts and cousins and friends who have been falsely accused and set up, who've been put in solitary for decades unnecessarily, who have been targeted because of their black and brown skin. And they have decided, my communities can't be criminalized, and I'm not going to let you do it. My community can't just be overtly oppressed when I have the power to say and do something about it, and they are acting. If without their action, Without us pushing, they probably would not do what they're doing. But when you push, they got to go with the flow, and they have gone with the flow. So I don't want to say it's all about us. It's about all of us. When I say all of us, those legislators who now standing up and fighting for our rights, who fighting for these bills to get passed, passionately, committedly, they need to be acknowledged as well.
Thank you. And I know Teresa has some comments that she wanted to make.
Wow, wow, wow. This is both educating and inspiring, to say the least. You know, Jerome, you were just, if I may call you Jerome, you were just saying, talking about the people. And it's not like so many other things that we've advocated for. It's becoming very clear that this is a very unique, okay, very unique. It has a very, the things with the people, it's not people that's affected, as Jerome was just saying, it's people across the board are affected. And the level of involvement he was saying of the people we have, elected officials now in certain positions, it's happening to their cousins, their brothers, their nieces, their nephews, their sisters, their uncles. This is affecting people, period, not just a certain people. But we are here too. We know that it is also a culturistic thing, because the minority becomes the majority in this situation. And unfortunately, it is the Black and brown communities that are the majority as far as number of people involved. You know, the minorities have become the majority. So when we're talking about this bill and what it looks like, and what we want to bring attention to, you know, it's going to take a very, when Harvey was talking about reentry, it's going to have to be different. It's going to have to be unique. The housing um, services that we're looking at for this particular wonderful discounted people is going to have to be unique, because the person and their situation and their experiences because of solitary confinement makes them unique. So when we're looking at services and reentry and stuff, we're going to have to look at that certain unique.
You're on mute.
Unmute, Teresa.
Can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
No.
We got you now. We hear you.
Yeah, now we do.
I had a call coming in. I declined it. Another thing we need to consider is the reunification of losses. You know, reknitting, helping them to be the people that can bond with their family and service out themselves and each other through sharing and programs like and creations like the wonderful Circle, Dr. Wilcox. You know, a very unique platform for us to get together and share and talk about the experience, because when we begin to do that, we put a name to our faces, and then our faces put a name. Our face lends to the issue. When we put a face to the issue, everything becomes more effective. You know, that's why I wanted to bring out the names of our losses, along with the name of our survivors. Amen. So I really am really happy about this. I was taking notes as we talked. For the longest, this has been a really silent issue. So I look forward to us finding our strength and the number of those those quieted voices that don't have to be quieted anymore. You know, we look at what's going on today, and people can chime in on COVID, or people can chime in on mental health, thank God, and people can chime in on drug addiction. But now we are creating a path for this and the uniqueness therein. And it's not just the Black thing, you know. We are the most visual Black and brown because we are the majority in this, unfortunately. But you know, the other thing I want to say is we are opening the Pandora's box. A lot of other issues are going to come out of the voices that are going to begin to get heard. There's going to be a lot more horror stories. There's going to be a lot of other, you know, the trap door beneath the trap door beneath the trap door. I think we got a great team to go forward with all of these points and the other points that each of us raised. And I am excited and thank you for an opportunity to be on board.
Absolutely, Teresa, those remarks were quite powerful and in a segue into, we have a few minutes left to talk about the retaliation that's occurring as a result of breakthrough. We know that there's no change without struggle. There's no change without struggle. I mean, that's just how energy works in life. And we know that when we saw the conviction of Chauvin for killing George Floyd, that was a victory, but only what Teresa was saying, another pathway. We know that was not the battle. It was not won, but there was a small brick taken out of the criminal justice system, that it can work, that justice can prevail, you know. And so now you have the HALT, the New York, you know, union of correction officers. Harvey, you sent that article out, and you're retaliating, saying, you know, that if we put the HALT, if we implement this policy, then we can't do our job. We have to have an opportunity to put people into what they call the SHU, Special Housing Unit. You know, it's not solitary confinement, it's Special Housing Unit, you know, so we can do our job. And it's the same thing that James Clyburn talked about yesterday. If we don't get the ground, this George Floyd bill that they're trying to get through the Congress is not going to go through, and with the immunity built in it. And that's the bottom line, is the police officers have been taking advantage of immunity. You know, now, not that immunity is wrong, but what they have been doing is murdering and getting off with immunity. It's abuse of immunity. But we have to make sure that immunity is put into this bill. And it's the same thing that I read in the article around the correction officers. See, it's about power. If you take my power away, I don't know how to be humane.
Right.
And I just want to point out that that's the same power that police are misusing in arresting people, is the same power the correctional officers are using in using people in solitary, and moving to a rehabilitative, a de-escalatory, and connecting with people rather than using power, you know, and abusing power, needs to happen on all ends of it, both on the front end, you know, avoiding an arrest, and in prison, you know, dealing appropriately in a rehabilitative way. So it'll be a big issue in the next year or two for sure.
I want to add too, Deborah, to what you were saying. These silent voices becoming louder, these faces being put with these names, these names and faces being connected to the issue, and our silent voices becoming louder, demands accountability. It's no longer about look what you did. It's look what you did, why did you do it, and I want to know how it's not going to happen again.
Absolutely.
On that,
Jerome?
on that note, I'm just saying, one of the things that we're doing is, you talked about it, this whole principle of qualified immunity. We're having a town hall on that in Rochester on the 25th of this month. So Harvey, I am going to send you the link and the flyer. So please, any of you on here, join us for that discussion. It is one of the vagaries in the law that they exploit that has allowed these officers to see. You can't legislate behavior, but what you can do is make consequences for behavior, and then they'll change it themselves if they don't want the consequence. And with qualified immunity, there is no consequence for your behavior. There's no money taken out. You don't get fired. You're giving almost a blank check to do whatever malfeasance you want. And we need to take that away. Like, we just won the repeal of 50A, where their records can no longer be hidden and sealed when they have personnel records that are dirty and tawdry, then we need to do the same thing and get rid of qualified immunity. And I mean get rid of it under the legal terms that you just can't use that to escape accountability. Now, there are certain situations where your job requires you to act in a manner that if something happens, that you should be indemnified from that, but not in all circumstance. And that's what qualified immunity provides for them. So please, when in a day or two, we'll have the link for the registration. Please join us. These are the things that we can coalesce around. And I don't care if you know, I'm Democrat, Republican, Black, white, Jew, Gentile. These are things that we impact all of us. If we don't get back to this notion of same mud, same blood, then they will continue to divide and conquer us and oppress us. And that's one of the things we learned in this campaign. When we come together and use all our gifts towards a common goal for each other, they can't win. We could do the impossible, like pass HALT.
Absolutely.
Let me quickly say, Jerome, you know, I like that, you know, we're talking about solitary, and we need to change that to solidarity in this case, especially, you know, people don't call me, you know, on the board, they call me, I'm the director of intimacy, but let me tell you, this is a very intimate thing. And it's gonna take intimate things, not only to be heard, but once we're in that position to be heard, they're gonna try to discredit us. It's gonna take intimacy to stand, you know? So I love that, what you just said. And I just look forward to us finding a way that even if you're not physically shoulder to shoulder and fist to fist, that spiritually you're there.
Right. And this is such a hopeful time. And it stands on the foundation of our nation. The American Civil Rights Movement changed the whole entire justice infrastructure in this country. If we didn't have the American Civil Rights Movement, we would still be drinking out of separate water fountains. You know, I mean, you know, well, we know that got all turned around. You know, when the laws were in place, we still had to move toward implementation. You know, but what we had was what? John Lewis, who came to Congress, you know, and all the other leaders that came as out of the civil rights movement. You see, and out of this movement of Black Lives Matter, look at the leadership that's developing in this country, multicultural leadership, because it's over for white supremacy. It's over, not over, over, O-V-A-H, over. It's over. But what we have to do, keep taking the bricks out. You know, we got to work at taking those oppressive bricks out of all aspects of our system, because we're moving to health and well-being and inclusiveness for all people, for a civil society and a functional democracy. And it's not even about, like you said, Jerome, you know, evil don't rest. And this is not going to rest. It's over.
That's right. Over.
Over. Yes.
I'm putting the link in for the next webinar. I'm putting it in the chat box, folks.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, we're coming here very close to the end of this. I'm thinking Dr. Wilcox, maybe some closing remarks from Jerome and Natasha.
Yes.
And some closing remarks then from you and Marguerite as we say goodbye today and make sure people come back on the 25th. So closing remarks, Jerome, Natasha, the platform is yours.
Okay, yeah, he's smiling, so. Closing remarks. Well, I don't even want to call them closing, resting. The resting remark.
Right now.
The resting remark is, as long as we continue to do this, we will continue to move forward. As long as we know that all hands are needed on deck, because this applies to everyone. We are the leading race right now. Forget about just being a human race. We are the leading race right now. And you know, when you're running, you can't let up for 1 minute or somebody gonna pass you. HALT, getting HALT passed was not easy, by no means. Even from me just being new, I swear, we had an advocacy day every week. I said, what is going on? Are we ever going to go to sleep? You know what I'm saying? But we knocked on doors. We laid on floors. We slept outside. We did whatever we had to do. I have never traveled so much in my life. If it was in Buffalo, I'm going to Buffalo. If it's in Rochester, I'm going to Rochester. So the Board of Corrections can bring it, because we ready. And with this resting remark, I want to say, get rejuvenated for the 25th, because it's going to be a bang out. Thank you.
Natasha, well, that head, she must be pulling them braids tight over there. That was a good one. Thank you, Natasha. Let me tell you something, man. You know, it's sad that we don't lift up our own all the time. That we just don't. And I want to lift Natasha up. She has, the minute she hit the ground with this campaign, you can see she's a firebrand all the top.
Thank you.
You give her a cause, and she gonna make it happen, man. I mean, that traveling is no joke. I've watched her every time I turn around. She was there, and it's that type of commitment, and that's how I want to end it. That's just what I wanted. That's the remark on. When you commit yourself to something wholeheartedly, I can tell you, you will succeed. You know, we worry about how quickly, because we in this microwave oven age where we want it now. You know, it's JG went for his my money and I want it now. That's what we didn't bought into that. But what's really told is that nothing comes without struggle, and change is something that even when it's for the best of us hate to do. And so we need to be agents, continue to be agents of change, because change doesn't come easy. It is fought harder than anything else. But you know what? In the words of the legendary Sam Cooke, change gonna come. So you might as well get aboard and not wait for it to come to you, but come with it. And that's what we need to do. Continue to be change agents, and know that the battle's never to the swift, but only to those who endure to the end. And I wish I had came up with that. Somebody more prophetic than me said those words, but there are no truer words that have ever been spoken. I think the HALT campaign exemplified that. And I don't think we're gonna have to wait 8 years for another significant, substantial piece of legislation to get passed, but we still got to do the work. And I'm counting on you in diasporas and all of you on here to join us in that work, and to reach out to us for any help you may need, whether it's our expertise or our passion and commitment. It is at your disposal. Thank you.
One of the things I wanted you and Natasha to address is a call to action to everybody on this call.
Yes.
To join you, I copied the chat. I'm sure the chat will be copied by Eileen, and everyone on this call to, you know, meet the call to action. This is what this webinar is about, is continued action, and also to drop in the date and the time for our next part 2 webinar as well. So I know you wanted to address the call to action, you and Natasha.
Yes. So right now, as you know, we're in the fight for the implementation of HALT. And one of the calls to action is that to first join us on the 25th of this month for the webinar that you guys will be gonna have, and for the action that will be happening in Albany around qualified immunity. Please put those dates on your calendar. And I know sometimes with all these Zooms and everything life throw at us that you can't be there all the time, but I can tell you, I've done 2 and 3 Zooms almost simultaneously lately. I'm about a Zoom expert, so I know that you can drop in, and sometimes just dropping in so that the people there see that little ticker down there, the numbers go up, and recognize that there's some support, gives us the strength to fight the long fight, to know that we're not doing it alone. So please join us in that, and we're going to keep in touch as they ramp up their attacks on HALT. We will ramp up our response to that, and we ask that you be in allegiance with us in that effort. So we will make sure that everything that's happening from here forth, you are made aware of, and please join us. And don't forget to use us as a resource. to come speak to your group, to your agency, to your clients. We are there for you, just like you have been there for us.
Ashe, thank you, Jerome.
Okay,
Marguerite?
so, yes, I'm just gonna say thank you for coming, Jerome, and being a part of our cultural committee. You know that we support you. They'll get that we will disseminate the information about the next event, the one you mentioned, May 25th. And that I just want to say that I'll speak for myself, but I believe I speak for the committee, that we would love to see your work happen nationally, that you have another state to add to our community of folks that have been able to overcome in this
Yes,
area.
speak it into existence, sister. Speak it into existence.
That's it.
That's right.
So thank you very much for everything. And look forward to next 2 weeks from now.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Let's
It's
not
been,
forget the role that spirituality plays in strengthening people.
Yes.
So let's consider that when we're thinking of what we're including and what we're presenting.
That's what I'm talking about, Harvey. Shirts up.
that's right.
What's up, Harvey?
Hey, so
get
Jerome
it
and
to-
Natasha,
I
I
can't get
want
it
a
to be
shirt. How do
stable,
I
but you
get a
know.
shirt?
We will
We'll
get you a
get you
shirt.
one.
Okay, all right.
We'll be
Ashe.
looking, actually, we may be selling shirts for you, Jerome, on our site.
Ah, that's
Serious,
awesome.
serious.
Fundraiser,
That's
fundraiser,
right. Absolutely.
Serious.
fundraiser. We
All
will
right.
be needing money.
Thank you. Thank
Love
you.
you guys.
Bye, everybody.
God bless.